Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at something that affects absolutely every single one of us: how our physical activity over time dictates our long-term health and ultimately our quality of life as we age. We constantly hear that we need to exercise, but the data we're unpacking today goes so much deeper than that generic advice. It actually maps out the exact, measurable trajectories that lead to what researchers call successful aging. It proves that it's not just about what you did back in your 20s, but the specific path you choose to take right now. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our quick roadmap for today. We're going to cover the global aging challenge, defining successful aging, 3 paths of activity, the winning trajectory, the optimal exercise blueprint, and we'll wrap up with finding the exercise threshold. We are moving all the way from macro-level data right down to your practical daily routine. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the global aging challenge. To really get why this research is so pivotal right now, we first have to grasp the sheer scale of the demographic shift happening globally. We are living in totally unprecedented times when it comes to human longevity. As of 2020, the global population aged 60 and over reached a staggering 1 billion people. That's over 13% of the entire world's population. And that number is climbing incredibly fast. With this massive shift, making sure that we don't just live longer but actually thrive in those later years has become an absolutely critical priority worldwide. Thanks to incredible advancements in medicine and public health, life expectancy is shooting up across the board. Let's look at China as a prime example of this rapid shift. In China, the average life expectancy has surged, hitting 77.3 years in 2020. That sounds like a massive victory, right? We're living longer than ever before. But here is the catch. While total life expectancy is 77.3 years, the healthy life expectancy is only 69.0 years. When you contrast those two numbers side by side, a rather grim reality emerges. There is a dramatic 8.3-year gap. That's over 8 years where older adults are highly likely to experience severe health problems, chronic diseases, and a heartbreaking loss of independence. Bridging that 8.3-year gap, well, that is the ultimate goal of longevity science. Which brings us right into Section 2, defining successful aging. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down successful aging. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot in wellness spaces, kind of like a buzzword. But based on the widely respected Rowe and Kahn theoretical model, it's actually a highly measurable, targeted solution to closing that 8.3-year gap. To achieve it, you have to hit 5 concrete pillars simultaneously. You need an absence of major chronic diseases like diabetes or heart issues. You must have 0 physical impairment, meaning you can handle your daily life entirely independently. You need high cognitive function, scoring well in memory and math. You must be free of depression. And finally, you have to maintain active social participation. It's a really high bar that encompasses your total mental and physical vitality. And because that bar is set so high, very few people actually clear it. Globally, only about 24% of older adults achieve this true status of successful aging. And in China, where our source data focuses, a mere 17.1% pull it off. This stark statistic is a huge wake-up call. If less than a fifth of the population is aging successfully, we've got to figure out what that minority is doing differently, right? Let's move into Section 3, 3 paths of activity. So let's look at the research to uncover how our physical movement influences those grim statistics over time. How does our behavior over a multi-year period dictate whether we fall into that lucky 17.1%? Well, researchers rigorously tracked 1,413 participants over a 7-year period. They used a massive, high-quality data set called the China Health and Retirement Longitudinal Study, or CHARLS for short. By following these folks from 2013 to 2020, they weren't just taking a quick snapshot. They were actively measuring how an individual's physical activity evolved over the years, calculating total weekly energy expenditure, and then correlating that directly with those 5 pillars of successful aging we just talked about. When they crunched the numbers, a fascinating reality emerged. The participants basically clustered into 3 distinct buckets based on their habits over those 7 years. Nearly 3/4 of the population, 72.5% to be exact, fell into the stable low group. This means the vast majority of people remained largely sedentary as they aged, never really changing their low activity levels. Another 17.1% were in a decreasing group, meaning they moved less over time. And only a tiny fraction, just 10.3%, were in an increasing group. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what those 3 paths look like as they cross over time. Notice the heavy baseline of that stable low group just hovering near the bottom. The decreasing group starts off pretty high in 2013, but then steadily plummets. And then there's that upward line, the increasing group. These are the people who, as they got older, actually steadily ramped up their physical activity levels, their metabolic equivalents, all the way into 2020. Now for Section 4, the winning trajectory. So we have our 3 distinct pathways. The obvious next question is, which one of these groups actually unlocked the secret to successful aging? When researchers looked at who hit all 5 of those pillars, the group with the increasing trajectory came out on top, boasting a 17.1% prevalence. The stable low group performed the absolute worst. Honestly, this completely busts the myth that you have to have been a lifelong athlete to age well. The individuals who gradually increased their physical activity later in life were the ones who optimized their health. It's the upward trajectory that matters most. But why is this upward trajectory so powerful? Well, the data points to some incredible physiological mechanisms. When you gradually increase exercise over time, you reduce oxidative stress and regulate your hormones, which directly prevents frailty and physical disability. Plus, exercise regulates the synthesis of amino acids, like phenylalanine and tyrosine. Now, these are precursors for neurotransmitters like dopamine. So by simply moving more, you are literally flooding your brain with mood-boosting chemicals, staving off the depression and cognitive decline that blocks successful aging. It's a total game changer. Let's get practical with Section 5, the optimal exercise blueprint. So the crucial point is how we actually apply this. Knowing that an increasing trajectory is the goal is great in theory, but let's translate this complex data into a highly rewarding, actionable weekly routine. The data specifically revealed the sweet spots for frequency, duration, and volume. For vigorous physical activity, stuff that makes you short of breath, you want 1 to 2 days a week totaling between 150 and 299 minutes. For moderate activity, like cycling at a steady pace, aim for 3 to 5 days, totaling over 300 minutes a week. And for light physical activity, like going for a walk, it's also 3 to 5 days for at least 300 minutes a week. This multi-component balance, that is your exact formula for maximizing your chances of successful aging. Now, if those numbers feel a bit overwhelming, please take a breath and remember this vital takeaway. Any intensity beats 0. Seriously. In every single metric of this study, the sedentary group was the reference group for failing to age successfully. Replacing sedentary behavior with literally any of these intensities, even if it's just doing chores around the house or taking a casual walk, dramatically boosts your health span. Moving your body is the main lever you pull to get yourself out of that dangerous, stable low category. Finally, we reach Section 6, finding the exercise threshold. This brings us to a really surprising finding, and we need to introduce a crucial nuance here, the Goldilocks principle. We've established that you need to move, and that increasing is fantastic, but the data proves that more isn't always better. There is a ceiling. Safely increasing your activity improves immunity, cuts down oxidative stress, and boosts your heart health. But if you cross an extreme threshold, specifically exceeding 11,366 MET minutes per week, the physiological risks severely spike. Extreme sustained high-intensity activity in older adults actually increases the risk of arrhythmia, hemorrhagic stroke, sudden drops in immunity, and catastrophic falls because of decreasing bone density. No way around it. Overdoing it is dangerous. The researchers actually hit the nail on the head, explicitly stating there should be a threshold for exercise and that a sustained increase is not always beneficial. Middle-aged and older adults absolutely must choose moderate forms of varied, multi-component exercise. This isn't about pushing your body to its absolute limits, like you're training for the Olympics. It is about consistent, moderate, increasing movement, ideally under the guidance of a professional. That is exactly where the magic happens. Which brings this whole explainer right back to you. The data is crystal clear. That 8.3-year gap of poor health is waiting for us if we choose to stay sedentary. But the power to change that outcome is entirely in your hands, simply by increasing your movement over time. So I'm going to leave you with this to think about. Which of the 3 trajectories are you currently on, and what intensity of movement are you going to choose to add to your routine today? The path to successful aging really does start with a single step.